Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Well, hello and a warm welcome to our guests listening in from around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're checking in. Great to have you. We're really looking forward to our conversation today with Dr. Bruno Cignacco. Bruno, I think we share so much so much commonality in our approach and in our mindset. Really looking forward to the conversation with you around bringing more human moments into the workplace. So welcome, Bruno.
Thank you very much for the invite. I feel very honored to be here. Thank you again for this invite.
Looking forward to it. We need to do it properly, as our guests will know.
Yes.
So John's going to give us the bio so people understand the person behind the conversation that we're going to be having.
Absolutely. Let me do that. So Dr. Bruno Cignacco is an international business consultant. He's a TEDx speaker, and he's also a researcher. For over 30 years, he's advised and trains hundreds of companies on international trade activities and international marketing. He also trains companies on topics related to compassionate business and human-oriented leadership. Right up our street, as Andrea was saying earlier. That's exactly the kind of people we love having conversations with. He is a university professor and a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy, that's the HEA in the United Kingdom. And he's also the author of business and personal development books published in various languages. The second edition of his latest book, The Art of Compassionate Business, is out now. So get it. And I'm sure we'll be talking a bit more about that and giving you links on where to find it. But I'm guessing, again, with all these things, usually you can find them wherever you find good books and good booksellers.
We'll have links and so on in the show notes. But we want to kick off the conversation, Bruno, with just understanding a bit more of the background. You're clearly very passionate about compassion in the workplace. What triggered that? What started this interest that's carried you over 30 years?
Thank you for the question. This is a very interesting question, and I can say that I read an article many years ago that was titled "The Human Moment at Work," and it was published in the Harvard Business Review publication. And this was a very interesting article because most of the publications on that platform are about strategies, tactics, but also how business can be more competitive, much more, for example, cutting the cost much more efficiently, more competitive. And what I saw is that this article was about building a strong relationship with different stakeholders, for example, suppliers, customers, colleagues at work. And this also was talking about the importance of connecting to people on an emotional level, on a mental level. And what I observed that this is a very important field of research that hasn't been explored a lot by many researchers, and I decided to write a book on this. The first edition was published before the pandemic. It's titled The Art of Compassionate Business, and the second edition was published recently. And this book explains how companies can be much more human-oriented and also be profitable, being productive, being more competitive. So this means that these two aspects are not incompatible. Companies can be focused on stakeholders and nurture these stakeholder needs, but also at the same time they can also try to achieve these key performance indicators such as profitability, productivity, efficiency. And this is quite important because most of the companies in the marketplace try to focus only on economic aspects, such as being more profitable, increasing the market share, but this is not enough. Because you need a stakeholder to achieve this objective. And I feel that this is a very interesting field of discovery that we can comment about in this conversation.
We've had so many conversations with business leaders around that, Bruno, which is they're interested, of course, in having a nice place to work. But if it doesn't come with the results, then, sorry, it's dropped off my radar. The results have to be there. Great. Yes, I would love to have a place for people to come, but the results 100% have to be there as well.
But I
agree.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you started writing the book before COVID, because I'm sure you've probably seen, as we have in our work with the relational lens, is that this conversation about being more human-centered in our approach to work, COVID has helped to amplify. It's suddenly become front and center in leaders' minds, you know, the care that they offer and the support and the compassion that they're offering to their employees. How have you seen things develop in this area of, you know, bringing human moments into the workplace
Yes,
since you wrote the first book?
yes. During COVID was very noticeable because there was a very big difference between two main categories of companies. The first category were companies that were heartless. They were merciless. They were getting rid of the employees with no compensation. They were utilizing employees until the end and then getting rid of them like discardable parts of a machinery. But
Wow.
then you see companies on the other side that even when they have to fire employees, these companies were looking for other job opportunities for this employee as they compete in companies. So this means that there are two approaches. Companies that are fully focused on profits. This means that in some cases they try to achieve profit by all means. In some cases, exploiting employees, polluting the environment, developing win-lose agreement with suppliers, and so on.
Exactly.
But then on the other side, you have companies that understand that profit, market share, sales, and any other economic indicator are always the natural result of developing strong, long-lasting relationship with the stakeholders. Because companies, to achieve profit, they need employees, they need suppliers, they need customers. They cannot achieve this profit on their own. And there is a very interesting concept that this second category of companies, human-oriented companies, I call them, understand that is interdependence. Everything in business is interdependent. You cannot succeed on your own. This company during COVID understood that even though they have to fire some employees, their sales were reduced, they have to keep on supporting these stakeholders. Why? Because when they recover after COVID, they need to have this stakeholder on their side. You cannot have these stakeholders against your company. You have to have on their side. And when you have this stakeholder on your side, as a company, these stakeholders are more prone to cooperate with your company spontaneously and unconditionally. Instead, when you take advantage of these stakeholders, you use them, you manipulate them, these stakeholders act in an opposite way. They tend to withdraw. They tend not to cooperate. In some cases, the employees work by the book, and if they find new opportunity, they will leave the company.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's so interesting because I think deep down we all understand that we make decisions emotionally, but we justify them logically. And pre-COVID, for decades, the logic has dominated how we do business, how we make decisions. At least that's what we articulated. Now we're finally making space for the emotional content that's always been there, but we're not so good at noticing it, bringing it into the room with us, managing it or measuring it. How do you advise companies to bring more of the human into the way that they've been doing business?
Very important point. First off, we have to understand that the most important factor in business is not artificial intelligence, it's not technology, it's not funds, it's not information, but it's a human being.
Is the people.
It means that we have to treat this main factor as it deserves to be treated. And the human being could be an employee, customer, community member, supplier. They are all flesh and bone human beings that they have families, they have problems, they have expectations, challenges, dreams, aspirations, and we have to address these needs. And the needs that we have to address are not only economic needs. For example, an employee needs to be paid a good salary. But also employees have emotional needs. They need to be recognized. They need to be appreciated, for example, with a thank you letter. But also they have mental needs. Employees need to be stimulated mentally, for example, with new tasks, new projects, training, mentoring. But also they have social needs, meaning they need to work as a group, teamwork, projects that are developed jointly with colleagues. So this means that most companies focus only on the economic needs of a stakeholder, and they don't understand that all stakeholders have multidimensional needs. This means they have needs that are economic, emotional, mental, social, and others. but also most companies focus on what can be measured precisely. This means what can be counted precisely. For example, profit can be easily measured. A market share can be easily measured. Productivity, what we call the key performance indicator. However, in business, there is a second set of factors that we call qualitative aspect of business that cannot be measured precisely. For example, compassion, gratitude, generosity, commitment, camaraderie, and loyalty. And these aspects are the basis of a strong relationship with stakeholders. When we focus on this qualitative aspect of business, companies tend to achieve the quantitative aspect of business, profit, market share much more easily. Instead, when we focus only on what can be measured, what can be precisely counted, like profit, we tend to dismiss the relational aspect of business. And stakeholders perceive this and tend to withdraw, tend not to cooperate.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned the aspect of emotion. What I observe in many workplaces, I observe that people cannot talk about their emotions. They cannot talk about their emotions because they can only talk about the rational aspect. For example, setting objectives, developing a strategy, setting up some tactics. But we're emotional beings. When we go to work, we don't leave our emotional being outside work.
Indeed.
So we bring it with, and if people, these emotional aspects are not acknowledged and recognized, well, what happened? They need to, this emotional aspect will be repressed or suppressed, and they can burst up in a very unexpected way. However, some companies have counseling services. They have support, psychological support for employees because they understand that the employees are not only rational, but they have emotional aspects. They don't focus only on economic aspects, but also social aspects. So this means that we need a much more integrative approach on a stakeholder that do not consider only the economic aspect, but also other aspects such as emotional, social, mental, and others.
I love that. I think it's so important. So you've really covered the why it's important they need to do it and what they need to do. Does your book go into, you've called it the art of compassionate business? Do you go into how they need to do that? How they
For example, what I observe in the workplaces is that there is a prevalent emotion in most workplaces that is fear. Most of the workplaces are fear-based. And why are employees fearful? They are fearful of losing their job. They are fearful of making mistakes. They are fearful of innovating, making things in a non-traditional way. They are fearful in some cases of being outpaced by colleagues because they are not cooperating with colleagues, they are competing with colleagues.
Absolutely.
To get the promotion. And when we are fearful, according to research, you cannot be cooperative. You cannot trust others. Why? Because you adopt a defensive attitude. You cannot be creative because you are focusing on what you perceive as a threat. And what we observe when we advise companies that, is there any fear in the workplace? Is there any fear in the workplace, any pockets of fear that are preventing employees to reach their potential? If so, well, if there is fear, you cannot develop a compassionate approach in the workplace because compassion, what does it imply? Connecting to others on a mental and emotional level, understanding how they think, understanding how they feel, and try to support them, especially when they face challenging circumstances. For example, when they lost a relative, or when they go through a divorce, or when they have some health challenges. So this is quite important. But when you are fearful, you don't have this compassionate awareness. You cannot connect to others in a compassionate way because you are taking a defensive position, defending from others, defending from threats that you perceive in the environment.
That's a really good point. And I think fear, employees definitely have fear, especially in the economic uncertainty and everybody's stress levels are really high. So you turn up defensive. What about leaders? Because they have fears in what they need to deliver and also whether or not they can handle these emotional conversations that cross the ingrained personal professional divide. You know, how much is too personal? So I think leaders carry a certain amount of fear of even going there into an emotional conversation to really be able to give good support. What have you found in that area?
I found that the most successful leaders are those that position themselves as role models. This means even they can be fearful, in some cases they can be vulnerable and so that they have fear, but they also they're inspiring others to follow them and to go through and to reach a very powerful vision and mission in this company. So these leaders also are the ones that believe that they can always learn. They are not arrogant. They are humble. The very important principle in leadership is humility. They understand that they can learn not only from advisor or consultant, but they can learn from the janitor that is cleaning the toilet, and any person in the company and outside the company. They can provide this leader with feedback, valuable feedback. These leaders are willing to learn on a continuous basis, and this means that they take learning as an ongoing activity. They don't learn only one and for good. And these leaders are not a know-it-all person. They are a person that are willing to learn. They have what the experts call growth mindset. They try to continually grow, because by doing so, they're giving a good example. But also they understand that they are continually interacting with human beings. They go beyond the role. And for example, if a leader sees that an employee doesn't feel well or is a bit despondent, this leader, regardless of the role or the hierarchy, this leader will approach this employee, will have a conversation, a soothing conversation to understand what is going on with this employee. They try to treat people like family, family that gets on well. And these leaders are always caring for the most important asset, that is a human being. But also these leaders always look for decisions that are win-win. Because these big leaders have very important decision in their hands. When they're making a very big decision, they will ask themselves this question: is there any of the stakeholders that will lose from this decision? If so, they will leave this decision temporarily aside. Why? Because they look for only business project would bring about win-win-win agreement. This means all stakeholders win and no stakeholder win at the expense of others.
Yeah. So here's a provocative question then. Can leaders be taught to move from fear to have this more humble, more growth mindset? You know, because that's a real cultural and mindset shift from what many leaders have grown up with pre-COVID. Can it be taught, or
Can
do they
can be taught, but I think that we have a natural awareness of what is important, because at the end, fear-based approach doesn't construct anything positive. So when you are adopting a defensive attitude, you cannot be proactive, you cannot be innovative, you cannot develop creative ideas. But also, according to research, fear is a constructive emotion and doesn't allow you to develop social resources connecting to others, creative resources, and mental resources, as compared with positive emotion that bring about all these resources. Leaders need to be aware that everything in the workplace is interdependent. When we understand this, we try to treat each other as a leader in a much more caring way. But when leaders are only self-centered, this means that they focus only on their own agenda, their own objectives, they don't connect to others, well, they forget about the interdependence in business. And they forget that they need others to succeed.
To deliver.
So to deliver the result, they cannot do this on their own. And it's like all pieces of a puzzle. You need all the pieces to create this puzzle. When they focus only on themselves, it's a very limited view of business. And in practice, how you do this? How you transit from fear-based approach to a compassion-based approach? With awareness. Being aware that you need others and they need you. It's interdependent. And this means a relationship can only succeed when the needs of both parties are fully met. So this means that one of the parties doesn't have their needs met, this relationship is likely to break up in business and in life. So with very simple awareness and very little time, because research have highlighted that you need very little time to be compassionate, less than 1 minute, when you develop conversation that you don't focus so much on you, but you focus so much more on learning from others, knowing their needs, knowing their concerns, their expectations, their main project, the personal life. This is more likely to bring about positive ripple effects. Instead, when you focus on yourself as a leader and you are egotistical, you are arrogant, you are selfish, you are giving a bad example, a bad role model, and other people are likely to emulate this negative role model.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so powerful. I was going to say, do you have any
I
examples that
knew you
you're
were
able?
going to ask
I
that.
knew where I was going with that. Any examples you're
Yes,
able to
yes,
share
yes,
where
yes. Yeah,
you've been into an organization, the culture, there was no compassion, it's just a harsh
It was
environment,
fear-based. Yeah.
fear-based, and how
yes,
that's been able to turn those around?
yes. I can comment about one of my clients that when we started advising this company, the workplace was stagnant, dead. This means that people were very silent and the people were not sharing resources. Why? Because of the fear of, for example, this information could be stolen, or this colleague, I don't trust this colleague. And this company results were going down. I talked to the leader and I told them, you know what? There is a correlation, a connection between your economic result going down, sale going down, and the workplace that is completely stagnant. It looked like a desert. And they told me, but how can this be? But I think that is your imagination. They didn't believe me at the beginning. And I said, you know what? Listen, there is a lot of research. There is I cited a very interesting piece of research that observed that when the workplace is loving, caring, people tend to like to go to work, they care for each other, people are more satisfied, customers are more satisfied, because when employees are more satisfied, customer can be served much more effectively. There is less absenteeism when people are caring for each other, lower stress levels, lower turnover, lower medical costs, and this impact positively on the bottom line. I showed the study to this person, this leader, and they told me, okay, but how can we implement this? First of what I see that people are continually fearful of making mistakes. You don't have any time for them to connect on a mental level. This company also have many meetings queued after one another, and employees in some cases they don't have time to go to the bathroom because they have so many completely tight deadlines. They have multitasking, all the things that shouldn't be there. And so we started with very simple change. First off, short-term meetings. Also, we introduced some meeting for employees to talk to one another on a mental and emotional level, but not talking about work. Talking about their personal life once a week. This means like social events where employees can gather together and can relax, can let their hair down, and they can connect to one another and know their colleagues in person. So, and this brought about less fear because most of the fear was imagined.
That's right.
And so the idea is that, and also then we introduce very simple techniques on how to become more compassionate. For example, the importance of a compassionate conversation. We mentioned some research that very interesting research on this. For example, that you need 1 minute conversation to connect to others on a compassionate level. And we mentioned an example of the medical sector, the health sector, that doctors that are compassionate with their patients before operating this patient tend to use less anesthesia with this patient, and this patient tend to recover much more quickly than doctors that do not introduce 1 minute conversation with this patient to soothe them. So we also highlighted the importance of generosity, because generosity is a topic that many leaders don't relate this to the workplace. To be more generous. For example, what can I give to my colleagues? What can I give to customers? What can I give to community members or suppliers? And when we introduced this topic, the leaders understood that they have to give only tangible things. For example, they understood that managers should give bonuses. But we mentioned that when you adopt a generous attitude in the workplace, you can give intangible things. For example, when someone is worried, you can give an ear. When someone is very contributing to your objective, you can give thanks. You can give mentoring. You can give coaching. You can give technical advice. So you can give a smile. There is a lot of research that when people smile at work and smile at the customers, customers tend to feel more satisfied. And also, for example, there is an interesting paper that when waiters smile at customers, they receive bigger tips as compared with the waiters that do not smile. So it's important to pay attention to this if you are the customer, because you might be leaving a big tip because of the smile. So lots of research on this that continually concluded that being kinder, being generous, being grateful bring about all these positive principle values in the workplace, instead of being self-centered, being selfish, bring about obviously more selfishness, more self-centeredness. So this is important because small changes in the workplace bring about big ripple effects.
And what I love is it's the link with the research that's showing the bottom line results that they're really caring about and focused on. Those things improve when you bring a more human-centered approach. And as you said, it only takes a minute and it
No
takes
doubt.
seconds to just smile.
Yeah. Also,
There's
this improves the reputation, because when a company is more caring with different stakeholders, with employees, with suppliers, and others, for example, from customer, when the company is caring with customer, this company is more prone to receive positive reviews online, for example, on Amazon and any other platform. When a company is caring with employees, they are more likely to receive positive reviews from employees, for example, on some platform like Glassdoor or others. So this means that, and also when a company is caring with the environment, this company has a better brand image and is more likely to attract high quality investors, high quality employees, as compared with companies that are not compassionate.
Yeah. But again, even there, all those things, I think a lot of the leaders, certainly that we talk to out there, would consider a lot of those things. They would consider, I'm not saying it's right, but they would consider them nice to haves. In the absence of the hard line, bottom line, profitability, productivity numbers, they would say those are nice to haves, not necessarily making the connection between the two. So they want both. One on its own is not enough. I mean, my environment, so I come from a financial services investment banking background. And life on the trading floor, unless when I was there, is not a pleasant environment to be. It's a very harsh environment. In the old days, and maybe things have changed now. I'm sure they've had to change, because it used to be a horrible environment, lots of money, and so therefore people lining up to go into those environments. But of course, very high turnover, because you get there and it's not a nice place to stay. Okay, keep paying me and I'll stay around for a little bit, but it's not sustainable. It's not long term a nice environment to be in. So I think what more and more leaders are looking for these days is an environment where they can have both. They can have their cake and eat it as well. Have a nice environment that's also having the top results. And that's the secret sauce that we've been working with clients and organizations to try and help them identify what the gaps, where they're missing some of that, the compassionate piece, so that they can create those nice environments, or at least take them to the next level, so that they're getting nice environment and top results. But the results have got to be there. That's like unquestionable. But how do we have a nice environment as well? So good to hear. I mean, even the bit about finding the fear and addressing that, because as you say, it's quite often imagined, but really getting to treat people as individuals, one-on-one, getting them to feel cared for, can really transform things there.
And as you said, it's about what the leaders model, because of course leaders are the culture carriers in the organization. And when you mentioned, in the banking world, the people who were being promoted and being paid a lot were those who were bringing in the results, regardless of their behaviors and how they treated other colleagues. But the mindset and the expectations of employees have shifted. So if you had to advise leaders now, especially those who might still be tethered to the old mindset, show me the results, it doesn't matter how you treat people, just, get the results done. How would you advise leaders if you were to tell them 3 things to consider, or 3 things to become more mindful of, more aware of? What would that be?
Very important point. So first off, the importance of self-reflection questions. So because self-reflection questions, when you pose this question on a regular basis, they create awareness. We thought that it's about awareness. In some cases, we get driven by deadlines and busyness that we cannot be aware of this important question. For example, some questions that leaders and any other employee working for the company can ask themselves on a regular basis is, how can I add value to different stakeholders? Not what can I get from these stakeholders, because when you say what can I get, you're focusing on receiving. But here we are trying to reverse this. You're trying to adopt a generous mindset. This means, how can I add value to others, to my colleagues, to other employees, to my manager, to customers, to the environment, to suppliers, to business partners? How can I add value? How can I be more generous? How can I be more grateful, even for minor things? For example, if a colleague gave you good advice, don't take this for granted. reinforce positive behavior, because when you are grateful, you bring about a positive cycle of reciprocity. People are more likely to contribute to you and also to be grateful to you for your contribution. And how can I be more kind to others? Because we all have, to different extents, different lives that could have challenges, problems outside and inside work. We have some challenges, difficulties. In some cases, we could be affected by familial problems or health problems. So how can we relate to these stakeholders that before being a stakeholder are human beings, flesh and bone human beings, how we can connect to them in a much more humane way?
Yeah.
How we can consider this customer not as a figure in the database to bring about profit, but a real flesh and bone human being that have this money, hard-won money, and want to know what good advice you can give them. So don't try to think too much if you are the seller about your commission. Try to sell them the highest price product. Instead, try to look for a product that is the best for them. And if you don't have them, give them advice on how they can get the product elsewhere. So focusing on others bring about a positive cycle of reciprocity, because when you are generous, other people feel indebted and feel compelled to reciprocate, to give you back. When you give outstanding service to customers, they are compelled to leave outstanding reviews online. When you treat employees in an outstanding way, for example, you give them free food, very good salary, very long holiday, this employee will give you back a very big contribution. They will work not by the book, will work unconditionally, will provide you with positive ideas, creative projects. Instead, when you treat employees or customers or other stakeholders in an ungenerous manner, this means thinking about you only, these employees and customers will tend to withdraw. Then not to cooperate.
I was going to say that is such a valid point. It reminded me of an experience I had just yesterday. I had to go and take a blood sample. The service was so good, from the guy who welcomed me and just took the form and put me into the system, to the lady who actually took the blood. The service was so good, I had to look around I said, where can I give feedback? They had a machine there. I went and he was so pleased that I was giving the feedback. I said, look, you've given me fantastic service today. I want to give that feedback.
It's not as common as we think, but I'll give you an example. This weekend, I went with my child and my partner to the theater here in London to see a play, a children play, and my child was a bit restless. Probably he didn't sleep well, 5 years old, and we have a very good location at the theater, but one of the people supervising the theater saw us. And I say, you know what? I think that you have a good place, but it's not the right place for you. I think that we have a box free that you can go, but we have the ticket for this location. Don't worry, I'm the supervisor. I take care of this. Can you please accompany me? They gave us a box free in the best location with no other people around. My child enjoyed the play. Obviously, I gave this person a very good tip.
Amazing.
But it was outstanding.
Absolutely.
They don't have to do this. They go beyond. And how we call in marketing? We call delighting customers.
Absolutely.
They're focusing only on satisfying customer needs. Okay, I give you a product that I promise and so on. This is not enough. Delighting means surprising them in a positive way. It's incredible.
I bet you'll be going back to that theater.
I will be going back to that theater. Yes, very good.
Exactly.
And this is I was going to say, it's so important, because now that we're in the digital age and everything is so global, we have choices about where we can go, who we connect with, who we work for, who we buy from. The better, and this human aspect, I think, will be the differentiator, because the price points will kind of level out. Everybody will be charging roughly the same or paying roughly the same. The difference will be the experience and the culture and the behavior of the leaders in the workplace, for example.
But I think we interrupted you. Because you were saying with your one was certainly around focusing on them, on the different, adding value to the different stakeholders. I've kind of captured that as one point, or was that multiple points you were making in there?
Self-reflection was the other.
One of the
self-reflection
point, yes, and also being more generous, being more grateful, but also adopting a service mindset. Most companies adopt a sales mindset. I try to sell you something. I try to sell you product and services. This is not the right approach. You're not trying to sell anything. You try to improve the lives of customers around you. You try to provide them with products that are suitable for them. That might not be the one that gets you the best commission, but also you are looking for them to experience positive emotion before the buying process, during the buying process, and after the buying process. And
Yeah.
you're not looking for one-off transaction. You are looking for a long life relationship, a long-standing relationship. This means that you are looking for customers that not only buy your product once, but come back and buy again, and they can recommend your product without you telling them. So this means that they become silent or overt ambassadors of your brand, and they promote your product worldwide or wherever they go. So this means that focusing on services, this means you focus on adding value to customer or any other stakeholder, is very different from focusing on sales.
Yeah.
Sales means I want to get more sales, more profit, higher goals, but they are my goals. Instead, when you focus on service, you try to improve the lives of others.
Yeah, on their goals. Yeah.
Bruno, I was going to say that we've seen that come alive. I won't reveal brands or locations or anything, but certainly our daughter in her workplace is a makeup artist. And we have seen that exactly what you talk about. Adopting a service mindset rather than a sales mindset means that she is pretty much every day the top salesperson in that team. Because when the customers come in, she's not looking at selling them products. She's saying, how can I serve you? How can I help you?
Okay.
This is really good for you. I think, actually, you know what? We do this really well. But really, there are a couple of other things here. You might want to go over there and get that, and go over there and get that, giving all the good advice. And they're all coming back and buying and saying, okay, yes, I'll take some more because of the service mindset.
Because they feel cared for.
Feel cared for.
Customer understand and can feel when the seller is interested in themselves,
Exactly.
when they're interested in customers. So this they can feel. They cannot describe with words. And also customer can feel also when they have been delighted. This means that when they have been positively surprised, and there is a lot of research on delight. When customers are delighted, it means that you exceeded their expectation. This customer is more likely to become loyal as compared with customers that you just satisfied their needs.
And that works for employees as well, because
This
I think it
applies
was,
to any stakeholder.
yeah, because McKinsey's research right after COVID said the two reasons why people were leaving organizations, and they talk about the great resignation, the two reasons were not feeling valued and not having proper work-life balance. So the more caring we become, the more we can hold on to these employees. Bruno, I think there is so much more we could talk about, a real meeting of the minds here. Is there anything we've not touched on that you wanted to share as we wrap up before we close?
Yes. I comment about this topic in the book, and I give a lot of examples, the importance of playfulness at work. Many companies believe that work is about abnegation. This means hard work, meeting objectives, developing projects continually, never stopping, never resting, always on duty. And this is not the right approach. This means that we are human beings. We need to rest. We need to socialize. We need to relate to others without talking about business topic continually. You are 8 hours talking about business topic. What I see that successful companies taking into account this playful factor. And for example, they introduce, ping pong tables in the workplace. So employees, when they relax, they rest, they have lunch, they can play ping pong, or they have video games. So this means, but also company can organize once a week or once a month social events where employees can socialize, they can connect to one another. In some cases, they organize games, board games, competition, so that the employees can connect on a much more human way with others. So this means this is very important, and there is a lot of research on this that is mentioned in my book.
And that's great. And actually just picking up and expanding on that one, because one of the challenges I think where some organizations have struggled with the social things is around, alcohol, and some faiths don't do alcohol and so on. But whereas one of the organizations we were talking to recently had a very good mix. They had cocktails, but they had mocktails in there as well. They had, vegan food. They had, the full mix, making
More
sure inclusive, making sure everybody is catered for. And it's not just, we're going for burgers and beers. some people would love that. Not everybody's going to love that. Mixing it up and making sure that. So, Bruno, there's just so much good stuff in there. How can people find out about you? Find out about the book?
Yeah, they can find the book can be found everywhere, online, offline. It's published by Routledge. It's titled The Art of Compassionate Business, white cover, second edition, and they can find me on LinkedIn. They can connect to me on LinkedIn, and they can find me on my website, one of my websites, www.brunocignacco, with double C at the end.com.
Okay, and we can put those links in the show notes so everybody will be able to find them nice and easily.
Wonderful. I really enjoyed the conversation. And
I can't believe how quickly it's gone.
I know the danger of doing podcasts like this with guests who are so passionate about their work and so like-minded in our approach is that I end up buying book after book after book. So I'm definitely going to get your copy. I love the research findings that you share in there that just give the evidence that people need to see why this change to a more human-centered approach to work life is important. But I think we're going to have to call it a wrap and say, Dr. Bruno Cignacco, thank you so much for joining us, for spending time with us, and for sharing such powerful insights on bringing those human moments, that human-centered approach into the workplace. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
To our audience around the world, and we say goodbye and thank you again for being with us. Who knows who we'll have on next time?
I look forward to it.
But we're sure it's going to be another great conversation. Look forward to it. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The 4 Habits for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.